All right, it is 12 o'clock, so welcome everybody to this week's Iowa Learning Farms webinar. My name is Mitch Harding. I'm a water outreach specialist with Iowa Learning Farms. And today we're going to be hearing from Erin Ogle. She's with Taylor County Soil and Water Conservation District and NRCS. And she's going to share a little bit about cattle, conservation, and community. So as always, if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please feel free to put those in the chat at any time throughout the presentation. We'll get to those questions after Erin's talk. So without further ado, I'm going to pass things on over to Erin.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mitch. And thank you everyone for attending and taking time out of your busy day. I love what I do, so I'm really excited to share with you how this project in Taylor County has evolved to what it is today. So I am Erin Ogle. I am a project coordinator in Taylor County, Southwest Iowa, and I have been there since 2016, since the beginning of the Water Quality Initiative grant that Taylor County received from the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, or IDALS. And I'll give a little background, or my background as to how I ended up in Iowa. I grew up in Northwest Missouri, actually just probably 10 minutes south of where I am now in Bedford. I went to school. I graduated from Kansas State University with a biological systems engineering degree. I realized I did not want to go into engineering, so I did want to stay in the conservation and environmental realm. So I took a job with the DNR in the Atlantic Field Office for a few years, and then my husband and I started a family and realized that checking cows was much easier if we were a few minutes away versus over an hour. So we decided to move back home to Taylor County. And so that's been a wonderful move. It's been the best decision that we've made. We're very happy to be here. As a project coordinator, I have many hats that I wear. I am a conservation salesman, conservation salesman. I help with the planning. I am housed at the NRCS office here in Bedford. So I work with state and federal dollars, and I work with the public. I also help with, going out to the field, planning these projects with producers and outreach. So I wear many different hats, and I love it. It makes my job very rewarding, and it's never boring. I can promise you that. So today I am going to focus on cattle conservation and community and how Taylor County has evolved into what it has become today. So Taylor County, a little background, if you haven't visited Taylor County or Southwest Iowa, I encourage you to come visit. It is beautiful, aside from this picture that I have on the screen. It is ideal for livestock and crop rotations. We have the rolling hills. We are not completely flat, even though we are in Iowa. We have the marginal acres, and unprofitable acres are farmed still today. Fence row to fence row farming is unfortunately what we see a lot of. And that's something that our local Soil and Water Commissioner district wanted to remedy. They would see fields that look like this that you see on the screen. And that's not what they want people to think of when they think of Taylor County. So they wanted to help change mindsets. They wanted to help with a soil health focus, as well as that livestock focus and bringing the livestock back to the landscape. So seeding down was something that they wanted to bring back to Taylor County. However, as we all know, change is hard. So how we were to do that, how they were going to do that was a challenge. And so they wanted to, they had multiple goals that they wanted, and how they were going to achieve that was what the WQI grant was going to help with. Taylor County has a lot of CRP. We are in the top 3 most years of CRP acres. So that tells us that we have a lot of those acres that are not meant to be farmed, and they are set aside acres, which is great. However, we do have a lot of remaining acres that are not meant to be farmed, but they are farmed. So the quote at the top, not all ground is created equal. Not all ground needs to be farmed specifically the same way. And I think that hits it on the head. It's very accurate, and that's important. It's something that we need to remember. So like I said, our Soil and Water Conservation District, they wanted to put forth an effort to try to bring that back to Taylor County as far as reducing erosion, working with soil health, water quality, and ultimately the water quality grant was to help ultimately with the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy. So again, it was all falling into place. So their solution, like I said, was to seed down side hills. This is a picture taken in Taylor County that first year that we had the program. The picture doesn't do it justice, but it does show that a lot of those side hills are farmed or had been farmed year after year, regardless of, if it was truly profitable, was it really improving their return on investment? But again, change is hard. If dad farmed it, if grandpa farmed it, that was the mindset that the commissioners wanted to help change. So again, bringing back the soil health and incorporating livestock into the operators or producer landowner's operation was something that they wanted to do. The working lands concept, not just CRP, not just set aside acres. They wanted to be able to have those working lands, bring the livestock back and truly graze and utilize those acres. And again, they wanted, that livestock component was very important to them. And I have a very wise commissioner that once told me, if the livestock stay, the people stay. So that there tells me that, there's an ulterior motive, maybe if we bring livestock, our communities can thrive as well. So would financial incentives work? We were going to try. I was hired in April of the year that they received the grant in January. So they hired me, and we have been working ever since to try to get those mindsets to change. So the original practices, like I said, it was simple seeding practices. This is kind of our bread and butter. Crop to hay or pasture, we were going to seed down those acres, those marginal acres, and pay $250 an acre to have that done. They would be one-time payments. So it would be different than CRP annual payments. It would be a one-time payment. And in this particular seeding, those are 5 years to keep seeded. So it's a commitment. It's a land management change. And so, this actually ended up being our most popular practice. And, the next one, the summer fall grazer, was actually our least popular. It still is our least popular practice that we offer. This one is encouraging or helping with that small grain rotation. It's a way to hopefully help market the small grain. We don't have much of a market in Southwest Iowa. And so our commissioners realize that, but they still want to help promote the small grain because there is a need for it. Having that diversity, that rotation in our landscape in Southwest Iowa. So in this scenario, we would pay $80 an acre for them to plant annual forages or summer annual cover crop mix after they would harvest their small grain in June, July timeframe. The $80 an acre would help cover that cover crop mix and then be utilized for grazing that fall. And then they could still go back to a corn bean rotation. It wouldn't be that 5-year commitment. It would be just an additional diversity in their rotation. Calving covers, that's one of our newer practices. Again, it is a seeding. It focuses on sacrificial pastures or calving lots. And so down in Southwest Iowa, we have the cow-calf pair operation. So we have the pasture. We kick them out in the summertime and they utilize the pasture, and then we bring them back home and feed hay in the wintertime, typically. So this seeding would be, again, an annual forage. It would be utilized in the spring. After you kick the cows out to pasture, you would plant this cover crop mix. And then they would come back in the winter, the fall, they would extend their grazing season a little bit. And, then you'd cut back on the it would be weed suppression. It would help reduce with the heavy spring rains, with the nutrients and the high concentration nutrients, a direct conduit to the stream. It's been helping with those factors. The pasture system that we have, that one again is a newer one from our original practices. It does have a range, as you see, $400 to $600 an acre. And this is something that our commissioners wanted to kind of mirror with CRP. So we wanted to take the worst acres and pay more. So if they were to seed down poor acres, they would be receiving $600 an acre to seed down versus the higher or the better soils, you'd receive a lower payment. Again, it would be a one-time payment, but this would be actually a 10-year seeding. So it's that establishment of a long-term pasture. We would also help pay for waters or a pond in most cases, and paddocks. So we would pay on top of that $400 to $600 an acre. We would help pay to help get that pasture established, because a lot of times in Southwest Iowa, we've had those fences and the infrastructure taken out just in order to farm, which is what the commissioners wanted to bring back the pasture, bring back the livestock, and the appropriate farming. The cover crops, fall cover crops, we have a livestock incentive. So if you use it for livestock, whether that's grazing, haying, wrapping, we would pay $35 an acre for unlimited acres in Taylor County. And this has worked. The simple base package, I guess you want to call it, it's worked. We have seeded over 6,000 acres of the hay or pasture acres. We've impacted over 400 fields, different fields in the county. We've worked with over 250 producers, and it's a countywide participation. So it's been pretty amazing to see that it's not just certain pockets, it's the entire county, every township, every area. It's really, really great to see that participation. So this is a timeline. We started our grant in 2016 with a water quality grant. Those are 3 years long. And so I worked on an extension in 2019. We received our extension. And then we worked on our second extension in 2021. We added Page County, which is the county directly to the west of Taylor. And we hired a coordinator, and things have gone well. Producers over in Page County have been very, very great, have been wonderful to work with. And so we wanted to further that and extend that to additional counties. So in 2022, we applied for an RCPP funding, which is federal funding. And we added 7 counties that are now in Western Iowa. So we're starting to expand. In 2024, so this year, we applied for an RCPP grant to request to add 8 additional counties. And then in 2025, I'll be working on my 3rd extension for the Taylor and Page project for WQI. And as you can see, our logo has changed, but the concept has stayed the same. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's been so much fun. So moving on to some benefits. First of all, this is something that the commissioners, soil health, water quality, livestock, it's all they're wanting to benefit all factors. We're going from an intensive practice of row crop to seeding down to hay or pasture. And, if it's pasture, you've got that the nutrient recycling with the livestock on the landscape. So we're meeting the components of soil health, which our commissioners are very passionate about. We've seen an increase or an improvement, I should say, of water quality and soil health. So I've taken water samples throughout the years and some soil samples. Iowa Soybean Association has been amazing to work with. They help analyze our water samples that I collect on an annual basis, or I guess every year they'll send a report. I try to go out as after a rainfall event. As I've gotten busier with throughout the years, I don't get to go quite as often, but over the years, it has shown a trend of nitrate reduction, which is what we assumed when we started this project, but it's always nice to have some data to back that up. But overall, you can see that there has been a decrease in nitrate concentrations from the fields that we have chosen to sample each year. As far as soil health goes, that has also shown an improvement. In 2017, that was the first year that I had fields to be seeded. And so I took an average of those fields that I had gone out and taken my soil health bucket and taken some soil analysis on. I sent the soil samples to Ward Labs in Nebraska, but I also did some infiltration tests and used the penetrometer, and you can see that I've got a nice comparison to show that there is an improvement. The infiltration test for the first inch of rain, as you can see, the picture in the corner illustrates that infiltration test. It took 2 minutes for that first inch to penetrate or to infiltrate. And then the second inch of water, it took over 35 minutes on average for all the fields to infiltrate. That's not great. In 2022, however, those numbers changed drastically. The first inch took about 10 seconds for that water to infiltrate. And then that second inch took 15 seconds. So that's a huge improvement, in my opinion, as far as what we were doing for those fields. We were allowing water to truly infiltrate and get to the plant. The penetrometer is a probe or tool. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is what I've used for the penetrometer. And it took 3 to 4 inches for me to hit that red zone, or for, I guess, for it to stop for that soil resistance. And then in 2022, after the 5 years of it being seeded and having rest, it was well over 6 inches. So it was a true improvement there too. And like I said, I sent the results to Ward Labs. So they show that the organic matter had improved slowly but surely. The PLFA and Haney test was also something that they did for me, and those results had improved as well. So again, we assumed that the soil health benefit would improve, but it's always nice to have data. Okay, so going on to financial benefits. When we first started this project, our partner, AgSolver, Dave Muth with AgSolver, they were based out of Ames, and they had a program called Profit Zone Manager. It was web-based, and it's truly a pretty cool tool. And so I would be able to take a field, as you can see on the far left, and we would outline it together. I would have the producer could be with me. We would outline the field, and then the map in the middle would be generated based on inputs that we would indicate, what the yields were, what expenses were accrued throughout the year, fuel, seed, chemical, all of those expenses were taken into account. And then we would be able to create a scenario of, what if we seeded down to pasture? What if we added cover crops in our rotation? What if we decided to seed down hay and sell the bales? So in this scenario, this producer wanted to seed down to hay, and red is bad, green is good. And this is what, these models were able to generate. Again, with any model, it's as good as whatever information you put in. The better reflection you will have with what pops out. So I had some producers that were very eager to be, very exact, and then some producers wanted to just use the Iowa averages. So again, it's just as good as what information you put in. But it is a pretty powerful tool for those that are on the fence or they want to see some of those numbers. It's been a very, very good and useful tool. And as I've had several producers tell me, this project makes dollars and cents. So moving on to community benefits, I love this slide. It makes me happy. The, environmental and financial benefits are great. And, when this project started, we had, that soil health component, the water quality, nutrient reduction strategy idea in mind. And then, we have some of those indirect benefits that can make an even bigger impact and a trickle effect, which I love. So we have livestock, so I can attest to this, but livestock is an investment. I mean, you have daily chores, you have weekly, everything with livestock, it takes time, and commitment. So with this water quality grant, we have had state dollars, and now that we have the federal dollars, we have a lot of dollars coming in. And I hate to compare it to CRP, but like I mentioned, we have a lot of CRP in Taylor County, and unfortunately, a lot of those dollars, those annual payments, leave the area, they leave the state, they leave the county, but these dollars stay local, and I just think that's so important. And it really has an impact that I have seen over the years, and that our commissioners have seen, and our farmers are seeing. So the fact that these dollars are staying local is very, very special. You've got your vet bill, you've got your salt, mineral, protein, fencing, watering supplies from your local co-op, fuel when you check cows, bale twine for haying, ear and fly tags. The sale barn has seen an impact. Your loan officers, your equipment supplier for repairing your mower, your baler. You've got your seed suppliers for cover crops, for pasture seeding, for hay seeding. Your co-ops. We do follow NRCS specs, so we do ask that lime and fertilizer are applied accordingly based on soil tests. So they've seen an impact. They are great supporters of this project. Custom farm and even local neighbors. We've seen, we now have a contractors list for local fencers, because we have had the pasture system. We've had the pasture paddock establishment, the infrastructure. I mean, we're creating that market in the area, which has been really fun to see. We've got neighbors or local producers that have never rented their farm out or their pasture out before, because of the poor fences, or the brush is taking off, locusts and cedars, and they're taking the initiative now to come in and help get their pasture established, or help rejuvenate their pasture to rent out to their neighbor, because their neighbor has cows. So we're getting that relationship built, and I think that's phenomenal. It just, like I said, this is a happy project. Family farms are staying in the business. I've got producers that have come in and indicated that their kids are graduating from college and they want to come back home, and they're able to do so because they're able to really refocus and redefine what it is that they want for their operation to look like. Do they want to have the cattle? Do they want to have the row crop? Can they have both? And so this project and the conversations, the planning that I do with them has allowed that to happen. And then again, with the community benefits, you've got your young farmers, young families. They grow their herd, they grow their family, and then they grow the schools, or they can stay in the local schools. So again, very, very, very good benefits. Success stories. We've had so many. And I think part of that is why we've been able to expand to other counties, why we're able to include different counties and different areas of the state, because good things are happening, and they're good things. Word of mouth has been phenomenal. The producers are amazing. They see that it works, and they share that, and it helps us here in the office. I know I'd mentioned that I do outreach, but word of mouth has been probably the biggest outreach that has been successful. Growing herds for that next generation. I've had a producer come in a few years ago that had indicated that his son came back from college and he decided he wanted to start a herd. They went to the local sale barn and they stopped by and they told me that his son just bought his first 5 head. And the fact that they wanted to stop by and tell me that means something. And so that's just really special, that we're helping do that. Changing mindsets. Again, change is hard. It's hard for everyone. And so when we're going from historically, dad farmed this side hill, grandpa farmed this side hill, I'm going to farm this side hill. The fact that we're able to have those conversations and those relationships now with producers to see maybe the benefits of not farming those marginal acres, I mean, that's important and that means something. We've had 80% retention. So I keep track of producers that, um, after those 5 years of seedings, the contract is up. And so they are able to go back to row crop, but 80% choose to stay. They choose to continue either, well, whether it's hay, if they turn it into pasture, if they want to interseed and, continue that pasture and keep that as pasture land use. So that's great. It's one thing to get them to seed down the worst of the worst, but the fact that they want to keep it seeded down, it reiterates that we are doing something right, in my opinion. New producers in the office. I love this one. I've been here for 8-9 years now, and every year I see new people, I see new faces. And, I have staff in the office that have been here for, close to 20 years, and they've never seen these producers come into the office. They've never participated in our programs. And so I think that's also important to note because, we're reaching a new group of producers and we're having those relationships and then having those conversations because now, we have first-time cover crop users because they had a good experience with this program. They are now using cover crops, or they are now using other programs to help improve their operation. They spread the word, and it's just a wonderful trickle effect. I love it. And then again, the expansion. So we've had an expansion. We expanded to Page County. We are expanding to other areas of the state or other counties of Iowa. And again, those counties are having success as well. The coordinators that are being hired up in those different areas are incredibly busy as well, which is a good busy. But we've also been able to expand the types of practices that we've had. Because of the federal dollars that we've had with our CPP, we are able to open up our practice list to what federal programs offer. And anywhere from now brush management, windbreaks, prescribed grazing, fencing. We're helping with being able to help with interior or perimeter fencing, waters, ponds, wells. We've truly been able to expand and make this something that we can help improve the landscape with livestock. And that's been fun because these are not simple things to plan and to design. These take time and commitment from the producer. And the fact that we've had so many different producers that we've worked with, it really, really means a lot that they are so invested in this as well. So it's been a lot of fun. Overall, don't change the land to fit your management, but change your management to fit the land. I had a commissioner tell me that, and that really resonates because I think that really hits the nail on the head with this project. So with that, I appreciate your time, and I have my contact information up there. But I think now, Mitch, if we have
I can take those next few slides there first.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat while we go through these last few slides. And we'll get to those in just a moment. So if you're watching today for your CCA, CEU credit, go ahead and email Elena Whitaker by the end of the day today, so 5 o'clock today. Her email is alenaw@iastate.edu. So again, send an email to her by 5 o'clock today with your name, the name you entered the Zoom today with, the webinar today with, and your CCA number. So again, 5 o'clock today. Her email is alenaw@iastate.edu. You can go to the next one quick. So if you are watching today and you haven't taken our voluntary demographics survey, we ask you to do that. If you've taken it already this year in 2024, you don't need to take it again. If you haven't, we urge you to do so. That'll help us out greatly. We got one more slide, I believe. And then next week, please tune into our webinar. We're going to have Danielle Winter-Lay. She's an ecological engineer and extension specialist at the University of Purdue Extension. And the topic is to be determined. So stay tuned, but please tune in next week for Danielle. All right, so we've got a few questions in. Oh, and check out our archives also. We post all our webinars to our archives. So if you miss out on one, feel free to go back, check them out. You can find those on our Vimeo account or our YouTube channel. So we've got a few questions that came in here. Starting off, do you include warm season grasses as a requirement for pasture seeding?
So, good question. We don't, as far as requirements go, as long as it meets NRCS specs, that's what our requirement would be. We don't have set mixes. We let the producer choose what species they want to have in their mix. So warm seasons would not be required. I haven't had many that have wanted a warm or native species in their mix or paddocks, but for the most part, we have cool season species.
All right. Somebody also asked about what counties you're in now, as well as if there's a place you can find those current counties, as well as the counties you're proposing here in the next grant.
Oh, yeah. So we have Taylor and Page as the original area, and then we expanded to Carroll and Cherokee, Ida, Woodbury, and Guthrie, I think, is technically on that list as well. And then Adams County recently had a water quality initiative grant too. So Adams County is part of that. As far as the proposal, I believe that would be on, as for additional counties, I'm not sure where to find that. I think it would be on the NRCS page, would be my guess. They are Southwest Iowa, West Central Iowa, and then some in the Northeast area. If they were, I think we've heard back. I don't believe that they'll be funded at this time, but I'm not sure what the next steps would be for those counties.
Very good. Somebody also asked if phosphorus levels have improved with draining, if there's any water draining into small ponds, have algal blooms been reduced, things like that.
Good question. I don't know if Iowa State or Iowa Soybean Association has any of those results for some of the P results or phosphorus results. I've just typically been looking at the nitrates. I do have a site where I'm taking soil or water samples from a pond that was recently built through these funds. But as far as other ponds, I don't know the answer to that.
Got another question asking if anybody's been interested in adding silvopasture, so trees into pasture, with your program.
Yes. Actually, just last week somebody asked me that, so that's funny. We've had a few inquiries, but I think that can be done through. I think I was told EQIP, which is another federal funding path. But as far as our program funding, we don't offer that. We just have it's, I guess, a straight windbreak, a typical traditional windbreak option.
Very good. So somebody is also curious kind of how your incentives might differ from, some other incentives like EQIP or CRP, things like that.
Yeah, good question. So our initial rates were set by our commissioners. They took an average of what they thought it would cost to seed down pasture, and then we looked at Iowa State averages to get what we offered through that. But with our new RCPP federal grant, those are based off of EQIP rates. So they're supposed to be based off of the higher rates or the highly underserved. I can't remember what that stands for, but for those the highest payments made possible. But since we set our rates, the EQIP rates have increased. So now I believe the new EQIP rates are higher than what we offer, but they're still comparable.
All right. So somebody asked if you have any advice for reaching those farmers that haven't visited field offices in the past, some of those new farmers, new faces.
Well, I don't know. Because I know that there are still farmers that we aren't reaching. Because, like I said, every year we've had new producers that, they've said they've never even heard of this program and they just now had heard about it. So I think that's a very good question. I don't know the answer on how to reach them. It's hard. I do a lot of outreach. I've done anything from the traditional mailers um, to radio ads. I'm not big on social media personally, so I don't do a lot of the social media. Our office staff has done some social media plugs, and that seems to get some people, but I think the mailers seem to be the most successful for me. Having field days, going to the schools, and sending home little fun tips on how to improve your pasture. We're a rural community, and so a lot of the kids that we have in our schools have somebody that they're connected with cows or some sort of livestock. So if you can get the kids excited, sometimes that can have a trickle effect too on mom, dad, grandpa, neighbors. Billboards, I've done billboards. Right before COVID, I had done some restaurant placemats. I had some of our local cafes and restaurants provide placemats or just reading material. So while you're ordering your food, they would hand out some information on water quality or cattle, our project, things like that. After COVID, and then COVID hit, so that wasn't utilized as much. And after COVID, I've still done some of that. But like I said, word of mouth, I've been sometimes just a neighbor that randomly sees another neighbor says, hey, did you know that they're helping with interseeding or they're helping with building ponds? That's sometimes how we get people to come in too.
Awesome. So somebody also mentioned that it seems like this project's really focused on working with farmers and turning that previously farmed land into pasture. Has there been any work with like people that maybe their CRP contracts are ending, looking to transfer that land into a different
Yes.
conservation practice in a sense?
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that because yes. So toward, I think our second extension, we started to really think about that. And so a lot of our practices now have the eligibility of if you have expiring CRP, we can help you transition and have that. You can receive the payments for converting to pasture or converting to hay or getting that pasture system set up. So yes, absolutely. So like I said, we have a lot of CRP acres in Taylor County. And so that's, especially in the last few years, that's been a big target. We want to try to get those producers to realize that they have an option. So it's in CRP for a reason. Maybe if they do have cows or if they have a neighbor that has cows, maybe they can, realize that, oh, there is another option aside from set aside acres, something that they can utilize livestock with because I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Soil Your Undies. I don't know. It's not really a program, but it's just a fun soil health test to do. But I've buried underwear, big cotton underwear in CRP acres, and then I buried the big underwear in pastures. And, even though I was surprised because the CRP did not have as much of the soil life aspect of it as the pasture has. So the underwear was really very, very well eaten and gone by the time we had dug up the soiled underwear in the pasture versus the CRP. So I think realizing or helping producers realize that just because it's set aside acres, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best choice for your soil or for your land. Having that livestock on the landscape is what really is the kicker. And so I think just having that option for producers has really made an impact and a big difference.
All right. Somebody also asked if you've done any partnerships with like community colleges or any other partnerships with the program, I guess.
As of now, no, we haven't. we don't really have a lot of the um, we haven't had a lot of feedback from some of the local community colleges. Maybe I just haven't reached out to the right people. The schools have been, I mean, I know they're not a true partner, but as far as, just educating and getting the word out that way, the local schools have been great. Um, because we are primarily state and federal funded. Yes, we are always looking for other partners to help fund some of those. We do have some local seed dealers and co-ops that help with some of the field days that we put on, and some of the outreach in that sense, but no, we haven't had much success with some of the community colleges.
Has there been any outreach with landowners kind of discussing some of these practices with their tenants? Kind of that landlord-tenant relationship there?
I think so, yes. Or in fact, I know so, yes, because I have uh, because it's federal and state dollars, we try to it's the land payment, or the payment usually goes to the landlord or the landowner. And so a lot of times, in fact, probably 90% of the time, I will have the tenant come in and say, hey, I want to sign up this ground just for hay or for pasture. But the landowner might be, 2 states away. So, there is that connection that relationship that they have to, in order for us to make that payment or for us to complete this project, we have to have both consent. We have to make sure I visit with both people and make sure that it's an agreement, because it can be a long-term commitment. And so it's, whether it's 5 years or 10 years, that's a long time. So we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But I think it has opened up that communication between tenant and landowner. Because like I said, a lot of times the landowner will be out of state or out of the area. But they do rely on their tenant. There's a huge reliability factor there, good or bad. But a lot of times with this project, it's been very good, because if the tenant feels the need, or, if they see the need that, yes, if I could seed this portion down, I could kick cows out and, that would save me. I could I grow my herd, I could do this or that. And then that landowner listens. And so that's been a really good relationship to see, for sure.
Awesome. So it sounds like NRCS was kind of involved with Iowa Working Lands project. Could you kind of explain that relationship more, how they're similar but different, or?
I don't know if I'll be very good at this part. So yes, NRCS it is a federal, the RCPP, NRCS, those are federal programs and dollars. And so with NRCS or RCPP funding some of these practices, or part of this grant, they have, like I said, we follow NRCS specs. So we make sure that the correct amount of seed would be applied, the correct amount of lime or fertilizer. We make sure that any ponds that we design through this, or any fencing that we put in, meet our NRCS specs. So as far as the Working Lands project, that's been it's been a work in progress as far as getting the federal dollars to run through state dollars, through the state, to make it an alternative funding arrangement, I guess, is what the RCPP, this part of the project is. So again, it's federal dollars, but it's being run through the state, or the Department of Ag. And so you don't have the batching dates. We don't have it's much of the ranking process. It's more of a streamline and a faster, easier experience for staff and the producers. So as far as the Working Land project, it's been a lifesaver in my opinion. It's been a good experience. There's a lot of things to learn that we have found out, but overall, it's the goal, or the hope that the commissioners had and the staff had, was that it would ultimately help get conservation on the ground, and it has. It's just in a roundabout way from what is typical.
Awesome. All right. So for the sake of time, I think we hit a lot of those questions, but going to kind of wrap things up here. So thank you, Aaron, for presenting to us today, telling us a little bit about the project. Thank you all for attending our webinar this week. I encourage you to attend next Wednesday at noon sharp. Otherwise, I'm going to give Aaron the last word if there's anything else you'd like to say.
Just thank you. I appreciate the time. I hope that this was helpful or interesting.
All right. Well, thank you all for attending. See you next week.